Aloha and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books off the shelf, dust them off, and remind ourselves why it is we love them so. My name's Tom Galley. Joining me today, we've got Tony Pasculi.
Happy to be here as always.
And what do you have for us today?
Today we're going to talk about The Girl of the Sea of Cortez, which is in a way a response to Jaws by the author of Jaws, Peter Benchley.
I was not aware that Peter Benchley had a writing career outside of Jaws.
He did. He wrote
extensively.
Yeah. Did you read Jaws, by the way?
I have not read Jaws, but I have read. Are you familiar with Uncle John's Bathroom Readers?
Yes, I am.
There's an extended passage in one of those books about Peter Benchley's struggle to get Jaws published.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't read that. That's interesting.
So that's as much as I have ever read, on the subject of Peter Benchley.
I am surprised it was an extended struggle because Jaws is a pretty good book and it is a ripping read. It is quite fun. And it was a bestseller even before the movie. And then a huge bestseller after the movie. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think, his first novel. And he went on to write a series of thrillers afterwards, some of which you may have heard of. The Deep, mm-hmm. about drug smugglers and scuba divers, and a book called Beast, about a Caribbean island which is terrorized by a giant squid, and one called The Island about modern day pirates, and one called White Shark about a weird Nazi experiment of a fish man. And they're all pretty pulpy and trashy and a lot of fun. I enjoy them all. But one of the things that he really took to heart is he got just raked over the coals by marine biologists for his depiction of sharks as being aggressive and cruel and territorial and man-eaters, which they largely aren't. And he really took that to heart, and he went out and he got invited on a bunch of expeditions. He went out and he swam with sharks. He learned a lot about them. And he ended up writing a nonfiction book about sharks called Shark Trouble, I think. Mostly about his adventures diving with sharks and so on, and trying to sort of redeem sharks in the eyes of the general public after sort of tarnishing them with Jaws. Yeah. And then on one of these, he had an encounter with a giant manta, and that inspired him to write this novel. And it's the exact opposite of Jaws in so many ways. Well,
the Kindle version that I downloaded had some bonus content at the end, which includes a fairly lengthy discussion about the event.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened to the girl in the story happened to him in his expedition in real life. I mean, there was actually a time when there was a wounded giant manta that took shelter under their boat.
Yeah.
One of the crew, I think it was his wife, actually went down and ministered to the manta, which didn't fly away, and then took her on a swim. And then it hung around for a couple of days, giving them all swims. Yeah. And they've got footage of this.
Yeah.
I'm reading it, I'm thinking, this is utter BS. Who does he think he's... And then I turn the virtual page, and there's a photograph of it. Yeah. And there's another photograph of it, and another photograph of it. And apparently there's miles of film of it. Wow.
Yeah. It's remarkable. So the book, The Girl of the Sea of Cortez, is about a girl who lives on the coast of the Sea of Cortez, which is the inland waterway between, it's the Gulf of California.
It's the Gulf of California.
Baja California and Mexico proper, yeah. And she's someone who's raised by her dad to appreciate the ocean for what it is. And most of the people in her village are fishermen, and they live, the distinction he makes is between people who live on the water and people who are of the water. Mm-hmm. People who are on the water are afraid of the water. They go out there, they fish it, they don't know anything about it, they don't explore it, they drop their hooks in, they drag stuff up. And that is the extent of their relationship with the undersea world. And Paloma, the main character, is someone who is of the water, and she spends every day diving and just exploring and seeing what's down there just because she loves it. And it's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Yep. So why, the everlasting question, why is this a favorite?
It's interesting. This, of all the books that we're going to talk about, is probably my most recent addition to my favorites list. So we're thumbing through yesterday, and sort of my personal definition of yesterday is 20 years ago. And this book was published way more than 20 years ago. But I think I first read it maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. So in that sense, it's cheating a little bit. But I have read it probably half a dozen times since I discovered it 10 years ago. I just read it over and over, and I love it. And again, it's like White Fang. It doesn't have a lot of narrative drive to it, and yet I find it completely gripping at every moment. There's a plot that happens later, like halfway through the book. There's a plot that sort of stumbles into being of her brother who wants to, fish the manta ray and fish the seamount, and that becomes her adversary. But until then, it's just a series of encounters in the sea that have no connection or purpose or forward motion, and yet I find it utterly riveting anyway. So that moment that you're talking about, that plot, so we've got the brother character who is a thoroughly unlikable character. Yes.
And we never get to see inside anyone's head, of course, except for Paloma's.
Yeah. A little bit into her father's head. Yeah.
Yeah, but when we as readers, when we as mature human beings in the audience see the brother apparently make an overture to her, we know immediately something's amiss.
Yes.
And, I'm crying out, no, don't do it. And yet, in her, we see her inner dialogue and in her, her belief in the goodness of people and her wanting to have a friend and all these various things. She's like, yes, I will make this choice. I will take it as it is presented, and I will try to trust my brother. I will try to be a friend to my brother. Yeah. And then, of course, it turns out, as we all knew it would, that he's simply being, devious and evil.
He's cartoonishly evil. And the only sort of, I guess, redemptive thing about him is that his friends are worse.
His friends are worse. His friends have no respect for him. Had he not a boat with a motor on it, they wouldn't be his friends, know. And I can kind of identify with that, trying to find some way to make people respect you, to make people look up to you. He's doing all the wrong things, but he has no role model to show him any other things to do. Yeah.
Yeah, their father dies when they're both quite young, and definitely favorites Paloma, and that's a continual source of friction and jealousy between the two of them after the father's gone. But, Joe, the brother, attacks her in a way that seriously threatens her life and then leaves her for dead. And it's like, how do you do that to anyone, let alone your own family? That's just, it's horrific. Yeah. So, yeah.
Now, that particular moment leads into a chunk of the book that doesn't make sense and doesn't need to be there.
Oh, what's that?
So he's done his attack. She's in the ocean underneath her pirogue, and he pokes a hole in the bottom of the pirogue with the spear and then sails away. Right. So there's this extended passage where she rights the pirogue, patches the hole, has to bail it out, becomes so fatigued in the process of bailing out that she lets go of it and begins to drift away. But she's not worried because she knows she can swim back. Yeah. Then as she starts to try to swim back, she gets a terrible cramp. So she stops swimming and drifts further away until the cramp relaxes. So she starts trying to swim back again and gets another even worse terrible cramp. Yeah. So she relaxes and drifts away. And eventually the tide changes and carries her back to the pirogue. Doesn't work. Because the entire reason he got pissed off and attacked her and holed her boat was because she had been moored, she had been anchored at the seamount. Yeah. They had followed her out there. He had lashed his line to her anchor line. Yeah. She had sneakily pulled up her anchor and they had begun to drift away. And he realized they had drifted off the seamount. So they abandon her. They go try to find it. They can't try to find it. They can't find it. Yeah. They come back and threaten her, and then she won't help them. That's the attack. Yeah. She is not moored to anything.
Correct.
So there is no way the current carried her away from the pirogue. There's no way the current, there's no other pirogue was there for her to struggle back to. Yeah. Right. And it's a sequence that, I mean, it reaffirms for us that she is a uncharacteristically clear-minded youth. Yes. And that she has a very accurate appraisal both of the dangers of the area and of her own abilities. But we've been given that already in large doses.
Yeah, I didn't mind that section. I would have to think about, the mechanics of, because, I've certainly been in the ocean and gotten away from things that were like I flip over a kayak and it's moving in the opposite direction of me somehow. And there's no current there. It's like, just the random action of the waves is separating us somehow. But I like the fact that the ocean is something that she's not afraid of. That her brother in that situation would die.
Yep.
And she does not. And she would die if she didn't keep her head about her, but she does.
She does. And this speaks to the competent man, I guess, the competent girl in this case. But
she is literally opposite of the protagonist of To Build a Fire.
Yep.
She knows her environment. She respects her environment. And she is well adapted to her environment, and she doesn't panic when something goes wrong in her environment. So all the mistakes the man in To Build a Fire makes. So I like that sequence. But yeah.
Yeah. It annoyed me. And because of that, and again, it seemed unnecessary. It seemed like, he wanted to just really make sure we got the point that she was something special. But I felt like that had been well established.
The thing that annoyed me, there was one thing that annoyed me, which I had no memory of until I read it again, was that the manta, after she heals it and it comes back and she saves it from her brother, and it takes her on a ride, and then it takes her down to where some pearl oysters are. And it's like, what?
Well, I mean, if miracles are happening anyway.
But that bespeaks a level of intelligence and sophistication that I think even manta rays are not capable of. I mean, yes, take a human for a ride. Yes, recognize that it's your friend and it's trying to help you. Yes, somehow magically know the limits of its breathing. Okay, all of that I'm okay with, although it's all a little dubious. But, maybe as a reward, I can give it some of these oysters.
How would it know she valued oysters?
Especially pearl-bearing oysters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that whole pearl plotline didn't pay off for me.
Yeah, that was... Yeah. It basically got put in there just for that miraculous ending, as far as I could tell. Yeah. Although in a way it did show, she had some level of devotion to the mother, even though she couldn't bond with the mother.
That was nice. That was I think that's one of the things I like about this book also, is that it's this young person who's making their way in the world, but they are leading a very lonely existence because nobody gets them. It's the ultimate YA novel in a sense. Yeah. Of just, I'm different and nobody gets me. And that's literally true for her because, for one thing, weirdly, she's the only girl her age on the island. Mm-hmm. And then, everyone else, well, her father was kind of a renegade. And so she's got that to deal with. Her father was a weirdo, and she inherits her father's weirdness. And so she doesn't fit in. She doesn't fit in with the women, and the women are all obsessed with domestic chores, and she doesn't fit in with the men because they won't have her, and she's not interested in killing fish. And she's just utterly, utterly alone. Yeah. But she has the sea. So, yeah.
The sea and a Piro.
Yeah.
I didn't find... I mean, it was an enjoyable read. I didn't find it satisfying at the end.
Interesting.
Because whatever has happened there, right? The manta ray comes back as the spirit of vengeance and drives off her brother and his two friends.
Oh, and smashes their fish net.
Smashes their boat and destroys the net, right? So, I mean, Joe, whose aspiration was to get enough money that he could make it to Mexico and actually become educated.
Yes.
Okay, so that's right out the window now.
Yeah.
They have no fishing boat, which was their sole method of income. So the entire family is now at risk. But it doesn't stop anything because the other fishermen already knew that these three boys had something going on. They had brought home this exceptionally large haul the night before, and it hadn't gone unnoticed. The other two, even if Joe somehow learns his lesson in humility and decides to, completely reshape his personality and do whatever comes next, you've got those other two out there who weren't any better than him. There's three people who know where that seamount is who are fisher people.
Yeah.
They're going back.
Yeah.
They might be scared today, but it won't take very many days. They're going back. There is no long-term solution here. Everyone's worse off. At the end, there's this glorious moment of vengeance and triumph and magnificence, but it doesn't lead anywhere.
There's a great quote by somebody, I can't remember who said it, that said basically the difference between a happy ending and a tragic ending is where you stop telling the story.
I guess I could see that.
And I mean, this is nominally a happy ending because it ends with her victory, but it ends very abruptly, like you say. What happens when she gets back to shore?
Yep.
Her brother's going to try to kill her, or if her brother doesn't, his friends are. Life is not going to be pleasant for her in the village ever again.
Not that it's been great so far, but it's certainly going to get worse.
It's going to get much worse. I mean, certainly if her brother doesn't attack her and if she lives through his friend's vengeance, they're going to destroy her Piro, and she won't have access to the sea anymore. And that was something that was carved for her, especially from a single log by her father. It's not something she can easily replicate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you say, that it was a short-term blip in the attack on the seamount, so that's certainly going to happen again. And she is going to be alienated from her community even more than she already is.
Yeah. And again, her family is going to suffer. Her mother is going to suffer for this.
Yes.
Joe goes from being the captain of his boat, whatever, tiny little boat it was, but he's now, what's he going to do? He's going to have to hire out on somebody else. Certainly it's going to be a loss of wages, which there weren't all that many of to begin with.
Yep.
This is I don't know if I've ever tried to say this word out loud before, but a Pyrrhic victory?
Pyrrhic. I think it's Pyrrhic.
Is it Pyrrhic?
Yes. Yeah.
I see it in print and have used it in writing, but I don't think I've ever said it out loud before.
Yeah. Pyrrhic, I think. Yeah, well, that's another thing that's weirdly appealing to me about this book is that it is very, this moment in time, this brief moment of happiness for her, even before the plot happens, is ephemeral. It's a very fleeting happiness because suppose none of that stuff happens, then what's her life? She just gets older. Yeah. She's older and now she's a woman and, her mom dies and what? How's she going to eat now? No one's going to support her. She doesn't participate in the village. She doesn't, she has no support network. She has no friends. She's going to go and spend all her days on the water. and what? And at 17, that's kind of a glorious thing. Or I don't know how old she is, 16, 17, somewhere in there, I think.
I don't even remember if they gave us the number.
But at 40, I mean, what? Come on. Is that's your life? I don't know.
Yeah. This is an awful book.
It's I don't know. I love it.
there are definitely things that are appealing about it to me. He went a little heavy-handed that first time that she goes on a dive with a number of truly fantastic things that she happens to witness on that particular dive. And again, you can see that he's just in a hurry. The author's just in a hurry to let us experience what wonders it is that she experiences, what keeps her going back out to that reef day after day after day.
I don't know. The Sea of Cortez is supposed to be pretty spectacular. It's like, just a very, very large Hanama Bay. The first time I was at Hanama Bay, I was blown away. It was like being in a tropical fish tank. It's like, how can there really be this many fish just like, bam, right there?
Wow, how long has it been since I've been out there?
You got to get out there, man.
Yeah, I got to get out there. Somebody have plans for tomorrow.
Yeah. You got to make reservations now.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
They're trying to cut down on the traffic. We got a big rebound in the fish population during the pandemic. So there's much less traffic out there, and they're like, "Hey, let's hang on to that." Yeah. So you do have to make reservations. They don't take big buses out there anymore, and so
excellent.
Yeah. Anything else? So you didn't really like this, and that is okay.
Well, I did not dislike this. It was an enjoyable read. When we got to the end, I felt unsatisfied. I'll probably go out and give another Benchley a shot.
I think he's worth reading. I think I would say either Jaws or Shark Tales. Jaws is, it's very much, Jaws is pretty pulpy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a notch above, say, Beast, about a giant squid, which I also really enjoy. However,
so I think they made that as a television movie in the
they probably
late 80s or early 90s.
Can't possibly
I
be good.
Remember that? No, it wasn't. But yeah, it was a fine read, and again, it was quick. It was a nice page turner.
Yeah. Also very short book.
Yeah, you're right. The villain was cartoonish.
Yeah.
And to draw, that actually draws another parallel to Half Spacesuit Will Travel. What was the...
Oh, the worm people. I forget what their names were.
Well, you had two, but they were just, unflinchingly evil. But I was actually thinking about the person in the malt shop.
Ace.
Ace.
Yeah.
Ace. Yeah. It's like, yeah. So Joe and Ace could hang out together,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Another quick one. I don't think I have anything else on this. I just, it's a fast, quick read. If you want to sort of get a sense of, this makes me want to go to the Sea of Cortez. It just does. And I don't scuba dive, and I'm not certified, but I would get certified to dive here. Yeah, it's amazing.
It does paint a fantastic picture, and it does make me think I should grab my snorkel mask off the shelf and get back out in the water tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's next?
Oh, what's next? Since I enjoyed this trip down when I was a young lad so very much, I want to stay in that same neighborhood. The next is actually a compilation book edited by Robert Lynn Asprin.
Wait. Myth Adventures?
No. Thieves World.
Thieves World. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. That to look forward to.
See y'all in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.